Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where I teach people each and every week how to make things on the lathe, either with using epoxy, natural inlays, or just straight up wood pieces. And this week we're actually going to be casting some offcuts from a previous project. I've got a bunch of these pieces kicking around, so once these are combined with some resin, it should give us a really cool look. So let's move over to the casting bench and see what we're going to do this week with these pieces and the color we're going to use. All right, so here's the bucket we're going to use. This is a template that fits perfectly in the bottom. If you're going to do this, I really recommend whatever casting buckets you're using, just get some of these MDF. You know, this is just, it's not even 1/4 inch, I don't think. And cut them out, and then that way you've got them for templates. So set that aside for now. These are the two pieces that I'm going to use. But of course, these are going to be difficult to cut on the bandsaw. I can't use my circle cutting jig either. So I think the best way to do this is we'll just use this as the template. Should be able to cut this off here and then use this piece as well. A little bit of it anyway. This one's got a big bulge on it, which is good. So I think what I'm going to do is cut this off more like this. This is going to be on the bottom of the casting where the foot area is going to be, so you know we're going to taper that in anyway. And we might be able to use that piece there too. Is that where I want that? No, that's not where I want it. I want to center it on that. I want to center it on the bulge. All right, these are going to be a little tricky to do on the bandsaw. Let's go over and cut those off. Before we get too deep into this, I would like to personally thank you all for stopping in to watch this week's video. I do upload every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, and I do make my videos, in most cases, into premieres so that you can get on there and we can chat and talk about the project as it's being made here on the channel. So I didn't really see a better way to do this other than just working on the bottom, then nip little pieces off until I got the profile that I was looking for. And that's close. I can just touch that up on the belt disc sander and it should work just fine. These are the pieces that came from the Ocean Cave vase. They may be familiar to some of my regular viewers. Just be really careful when you're working on the bandsaw. I believe that the bandsaw is probably... I've never actually looked this stat up, but I know that I've come close a number of times of injuring myself on the bandsaw. So bandsaw and table saw, I'm assuming will probably be number 1 and number 2, maybe chop saw too. So yeah, like I said, that's good enough to throw into the bucket. Along with that, I didn't really kind of show a lot of these pieces being chopped off, but there's 4 pieces in total that we're able to use from the initial log that we cut up. Once that's done, of course, we got to clean off all the bark, inner bark, dirt, mud, you name it. It's all got to come off before we do any casting. It's important to really take this step to give the wood a tooth for the resin to bond to. And by cleaning this up, hopefully it won't take the edge off of your tool as quickly, especially when it comes to being dirt trapped in the voids. I should also mention this footage and the footage from the bandsaw is being shot on a GoPro 12, which is new to me. And so I'm still kind of working the bugs out of it. I noticed the camera was moving around and wants me to follow a little bit, so I got to sort that out. So, you know, again, in the comments, I see it all the time. Why do you not use mold release? It's every video. There's comments on that, and I do on occasion, but not when I have to glue pieces like this in place. And you'll see that I glue these pieces in place, and then I'm like, why won't that fit in there? I did a kind of a pre-fit before, but I guess I didn't get them in the right location. So anyway, eventually I'll get that sorted out as I'm standing there trying to figure out this puzzle. And anyway, I get it eventually, but this is why you don't typically see me use mold release. You can't glue to it. All right, let's mix up the resin. So the goal this week is to make a kintsugi piece. And if you're not familiar with that, that is the Japanese way of fixing broken pottery. In this piece, we're going to put some crystal purple, and along with that, we're going to put some crystal ice white for some sparkle. So when this goes into the pressure pot and I take it out the next day, I want to see lots of cracks. This resin is not designed for this depth. All right, here's our first 48 ounces. It'll take probably at least 2 of these, I would say. Looks like it might take 3. I'll bring it back when I got the next one mixed up. All right, here's another 48. All right, this is the last 48 ounces. So it's going to be just about the perfect amount. Okay, well that's it. That is a lot of art cast. Art cast is only meant to be poured for an inch depth, so we'll let's hope that there's lots of thermal cracks in this tomorrow, and then we'll be able to do the second pour. Anyway, this will go into the pressure pot. See you guys tomorrow. Well, good morning, everybody. Robbed again. Where are my thermal cracks? Oh man, I can't believe this. 2 castings in a row, no thermal cracking, and oh, I just feel robbed. And again, you know, just weird and wacky things. Epoxy sealing things off so that it can't fill in around it. All right, well, there's got to be thermal cracks in this. I'll be shocked, absolutely shocked if there isn't. But anyway, we've been down this road. Anyway, let's get this out and have a look at it. Looks like it's just going to fall out. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's a thermal crack there. Yeah, it goes along here too. Yeah, I don't know if the camera's going to pick those up or not. Right here. I need 2 hands to hold this because it's fairly hefty. All right, well, it's hammer time. That's some pretty tough stuff. Oh look, there's a crack coming. Finally. So as you're going to see, this casting really puts up a massive fight and does not want to be broken apart. Imagine that. Epoxy does not want to be broken apart. So you're going to see me slamming this thing on the floor, trying to break it into pieces. Holy! You're going to see me using a 4-pound little sledgehammer you see on the table. And anyway, this thing puts up quite a fight. Well, I managed to break this off. That doesn't count. Well, At least we got one. Not the result I was expecting, but I'll take it. I am wearing a shield. This is crazy. Wow, I can't believe I can't break that apart. All of this on the bottom is going to get turned away anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal if I lose this off of here. Matter of fact, I probably would prefer it. Oh, I'm awful tempted to take this over to the bandsaw and just cut it up. You're not going to believe it. That's my old vacuum chamber down there, and all of these marbles are in there, and now they're all over my shop floor. So while you guys didn't see it, I actually hit the knuckle on my thumb with the hammer. And, well, that's why I had to mute the volume. Because, well, I want to put up PG content, and that wouldn't have qualified. Yeah, this epoxy from Designer Epoxy is pretty tough stuff. I gotta get a Band-Aid. Knock the power out. Yes! It's the little things in life, people. It's the little things. All right. There, that was easy. Now I gotta figure out how to put this all back together. And I hate puzzles. How hard can it be? So yeah, I find life challenging enough as it is without introducing puzzles into it. But this one wasn't too hard to figure out. The problem with this was, of course, with me breaking this all apart, it now doesn't fit correctly in the bucket. And so eventually I just kind of leave a couple small pieces out so it comes together. If I had a redo on this, I might try and find a bucket that's just slightly larger than this, but kind of all the buckets I had were too large. It would have had really big wide veins in it, so I didn't think that would look all that great, but I don't know, maybe it would have. Either way, we get it eventually, and I just kind of take some of the purple resin pieces and just jam them in here and there. And then that way when the next epoxy goes in on top of it, it actually looks pretty decent. I think it looks really cool, actually. All right, I think that's it. Let's mix up some resin. This time around, we're going to use the Pro Series. I could have stuck with Artcast here, but I like the fact that the Pro Series is thinner so that it'll flow better. And we're going to use some liquid gold in here. And gold and purple go together. And I tried to mix this really, really strong so that the gold would really pop with it. I would have liked to have seen it a little bit stronger, but overall, I'm pretty happy with this piece. All right, this is 1.5 liters. I know we got quite a few voids to fill, so I know that it may seem a lot, but I can't get this fully seated on the very bottom either. So I believe that that's going to be an issue if I don't give it a fair bit of resin here. Okay, we're going to quickly throw this in the vacuum chamber just to make sure that we get all the voids filled. That's next. All right, here we go. I definitely see this as something that needs to happen. You might get away with it without doing this, and it may be fine. When it comes to pieces like this in the past, I've found that, if you don't use the vacuum chamber to remove the air and to try and drive that resin down into certain areas, that, you could end up with some voids not being filled or cracks being filled. When I drove those small little pieces of the purple epoxy back into the original casting, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but some of the veins, it opened up some of the veins, so I was quite happy with that. There, it's almost at full vacuum, and really you're just boiling the resin here. All right, I think that that's going to be good. I'm just going to release the vacuum. I'm really worried about this starting to cure before I get it in the pressure pot. All right, I'm going to throw this in the pressure pot, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So somebody forgot to turn the microphone on, so that's why it's quiet. But note how that just slipped out of the bucket again. I can't really explain it because usually there's a little bit more of a fight, but I'll take it. Anyway, I'm just getting some centers here, and then we'll get this mounted on the lathe. And then eventually we'll get our volume back here once I realize that the microphone's not on. So always a bonus when you're shooting YouTube videos to turn the microphone on. So while we wait for the sound to come back, I should mention that I'm starting off here with the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. I do have the smaller one as well, but the number 3 is my go-to tool for basically the majority of my epoxy turning, and I do highly recommend it. And if you want to get one, there is a link in the description to get 10% off your next order, and there's also a link there for Canadian customers. Ken Rude out in Calgary, he's got he helps out Mike here as far as dealing with Canadian customers. Anyway, those links are all down in the description. Feel free to check them out. I do have a number of Hunter tools, and the Phoenix, the Osprey, and the smaller Hercules are tools that you'll see me use quite often here. For the most part, I think the Phoenix is probably, besides the number 3 Hercules, that's typically the 2 main tools that I use from Hunter Tools. But I've been using the retrofit tool to do some hollowing. That's been a thing lately, and I'm quite pleased with that after not giving it a fair enough chance to figure it out. Anyway, there's our sound back. When I did this zoomed out view, I'm like, oh yeah, some dummy forgot to turn the microphone on. So anyway, now we got some background noise happening. So happy days. Thanks again to those who watched last week's video, Mellow Yellow, and again another epoxy piece that should have cracked all the pieces and didn't. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get this one done this week, and everything's going to go well with it. And, it's just kind of a weird thing. Most resin casters don't want any thermal cracks, where lately I'm finding the pieces that thermal crack are the ones that actually have a lot of visual interest in them, maybe more than the ones that don't crack. Especially when you can add different colors to the mix, and just really, a lot of people, when they probably look at a piece like this, just can't figure out exactly how it was made. So, and that's great. That's exactly how I want it to be. A lot of comments on last week's video about the epoxy and the yellowing of it. And yes, this is one of the things that happens with epoxy, and it's typically B, the component B, which is the hardener, that turns yellow over time. Last week's piece is probably more on the ivory looking side of the house, not so much yellow. So anyway, like some people were referring to it almost as opal. On this casting, when it came out from its second pour, there were a couple of voids down at the bottom. You'll see them every now and then when I shut the lathe off. They're not a huge deal. For the most part, they get turned away anyway, so I wasn't really too concerned about them. And of course, we've got UV resin in our inventory, so we can fix any of those holes anyway along the way. So just like normal, I'm just going to basically strip off the excess epoxy, and once that's done, we can make a determination on exactly what we're going to do here. But so far, I'm liking what I see. But parts of the kintsugi that we put in here are not really all that visible, and that's because the joints are a little tighter than I would like them to be. An option would be to take it over to the belt sander and kind of grind away a bit of that, and that certainly, after thinking about it, that probably would have been the best way to go about this, just to give you better veining in this piece. But overall, I'm happy with this piece, and hopefully the winner is as well, whoever wins it. So with that said, I need to cover this each and every time I do one of these giveaways. This is the 115,000 subscriber giveaway. And this beautiful bowl or lidded dish is going to be going to somebody, along with 3 gallons of epoxy from Designer Epoxy. And thanks again for giving away the epoxy. I know that my subscribers really do appreciate it. But unfortunately, we have scammers, and typically what happens is you will comment in the video, and then they will reply to your comment saying, oh, congratulations, you won. Sometimes I'll put a text number in there. I'm not going to put my text in there. Like that's just not going to ever happen. And I'm never going to ask you for money for shipping. And this is another thing that they'll do. They'll get you on the phone, and they'll say, oh yeah, you won, but you're going to have to cover the shipping cost. No, the winner, I ship worldwide at my expense. I will never ever ask you for money for any of these giveaways, so please don't get scammed. If they do reply to your comment, then to the right there are 3 dots. Just click on that, and then you can report it as spam, and then YouTube will take their comments down. Doesn't matter if they've commented 1,000 times on the videos, they'll take that down. I do watch it fairly closely on these giveaways. I'm able to block them. You can't block them, but if I see them, I'll certainly take that comment down, report it as spam, and then block them. So I don't want to see anybody get taken by these people, but they're out there, and it's just something that we have to deal with every time I do a giveaway on my channel. So I want to put a glue block on this. So here I'm working on the tenon that we're going to put in the chuck, and then that way we'll be able to work on the very bottom of this piece and get a glue block on the bottom. And along with that, my plan is to incorporate that gold little tenon that's at the very top into the knob that you see on the very top of this piece. Very tough to get a bite on that epoxy, especially when it's cured. So yeah, sometimes I use a little bit of a cheater bar on the end of my chuck key to get some decent grip onto it. Anyway, once that's done, we'll clean off the very bottom, hit this with some 60 grit from sandpaper.ca, And then we'll be able to slam a glue block on the very bottom of this and get our tenon made. So that is an end grain tenon that you're looking at, and it's been dipped in hot melt glue that's been melted in a frying pan, electric frying pan. I didn't realize it, but there are different types of hot melt glue. There's high temperature and low temperature. This is the high temperature stuff, so that tells me that it's probably stronger. The last week here, I got a couple messages about these glue-on tenons, so I'll cover this again. It's important that the depth of your tenon, and you'll have to measure your own jaws on your own chuck for this, that the tenon isn't as deep as the chuck is. So the jaws that come on my stronghold chuck are a 1/2 inch deep, 13 millimeters. So I want to make that just shy of that, so that when the when the chuck goes on the bottom of this piece, the top of the jaws is resting on the bottom of the casting. There, I'm measuring it right there. Now, the reason why this is important is because the jaws resting on the very top, the bottom of the casting, will prevent vibration or take a lot of it out of the mix. So make sure that you do that, because if your tenons are too deep, then essentially the casting is unsupported and will vibrate. Well, what do you think so far? This has actually given me the lilac lidded dish that I did. It's giving me those kind of vibes. I'm not going to lie, I'm a little disappointed. I want more gold to show up here. Areas like this is good. I realize the lighting may be throwing that off. The resin staining adds another dimension to it that I like. I mean, here, I don't know if the camera's picking that up or not. Turn this off. Anyway, there's a gold little wedge here, and then right down in here it almost disappears, and that's not really what I was going for. All right, so anyway, I think it's still very cool. I'm going to go with a lidded dish. I think that's what we're going to do here. Just going to taper this off a bit. We'll cut the top off. I've got this resin tenon that we can incorporate. There's lots of gold on the very top of what would be the lid. So we'll turn that into a little knob, a little handle to pull off the top. Do have a little bit of punky grain here, and probably what I will do is after I taper this off, I'll hit this with the CA glue. Any of these spots that I think may be an issue as far as finishing is concerned. Then we'll get the lid cut off, and we might even be able to get a small core out of this too. Anyway, that's my plan. As I whittle this piece down, that kind of punky area seems to disappear, so we don't really need any CA glue in that area. I do use it a little further on here, but no, I was quite happy and pleased with the way that grain looked. The other thing too is with this piece, this is the first piece that we've had basically the thermal cracking and breaking things apart. The wood actually broke apart on this piece, which you typically will never get with burl, because the grain in a burl is just growing in all different directions. And you know, if you've ever tried to split a burl for firewood, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So anyway, we've got a bunch of new members, so thanks for that. I really do appreciate you joining. And you know, I've been trying to keep them involved in a lot of pieces. Admittedly, not so much on this piece. It's been a very busy time for my wife and I, because we will be listing the house here the 1st of February, right around there anyway. So we've been basically packing some stuff up and doing some decluttering and this kind of business. So I've been really devoted to the house. I have yet to clean up my workshop, and they're coming on Saturday to do pictures and do the drone as well. Anyway, I cut down with the parting tool as far as I could, as far as I safely thought I should go. And again, that's just a wood blade that I'm using on my Sawzall, and it did a really good job cutting through here. I at some point you'll lose mechanical advantage with the parting tool, and if you're starting to really fight it, it's best to stop and then basically cut the lid off with something like this. So I figured that I would actually get a core out of this. It's large enough, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just going to flatten off the very top of this, what will be the bowl portion of this lidded dish. And then, of course, we'll be able to set up the coring rig. You'll see I am putting a tenon on the very top of that, and that's just, I want that there so that in the future when I reuse this, it's there if I need it. So this is the base of the coring rig. And you know, I typically don't ever show this because these videos are too long as it is. But what I like to do is mount the rig on the bed of the lathe, swing in the knife set, and so that there's about a 1/2 inch of thickness between the cutter and the top of the jaws. And then I mark it with a permanent marker after it's been squared. And then that way I know that, you know, I can't move the base of the rig in any closer than that. And if I do, you're going to end up going through the bottom of the bowl, the big outside bowl. Then I move it over to where I want it, and then that's it. It's fairly simple and easy to do. We are all set up and ready for coring. This is the Core Pro cutter from 100 Tool Systems. Absolutely love this thing. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to use tailstock support until we get in quite a ways. Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at there. So hopefully things don't go bad until I can get some tailstock support. But this is a pretty small piece, so hopefully it's not an issue. All right, see how we make it. Now, of course, these coring rigs are typically used on green wood, which of course cuts a lot better than than this dried wood and epoxy, that is for sure. I didn't cut any footage out of here. I thought I would show you exactly how this works. I do find that with the knife has a support. As you see, I just turned it around and stuck it in the casting. And of course, it's the same profile as the knife. There, I'm finally able to get tailstock support in there. Tailstock extender from John Tully. Thanks again, John. And the only problem is, of course, you can't extract the knife set to clean it off. So eventually you'll see me using compressed air all the time, and that actually works quite well. But, you know, these coring rigs are meant to be used with green wood, and they cut very, very easily. Now, this would be really hard to do if you don't have the Core Pro cutter from Hunter Tools. You can use the one-way cutter that comes on this system, but, you know, I just find that the Core Pro cutter is just way superior to the one-way cutter that comes with this system. And just, you know, the sharpening of the one-way makes fantastic products. Absolutely love products from one-way, but I hate that cutter that comes on the system. So the Core Pro cutter fixes that. And there you go. You got yourself another casting that you'll be able to do something else with instead of having it go to shavings and dust. So we're now mounted outboard, and for those who are new to the channel and don't know why I'm turning outboard, it's because I'm left-handed. So this is a 20-inch general lathe, and it's got left-hand threads on the outboard end. So if you're a lefty, look for one of these lathes because they're much, much easier to use than trying to work over the lathe bed for us poor lefties in the world. The 10% of us, or something like that. I think it's 10%. I do find it weird, though, that in my friends group, there's 2 left-handed people. And my sister-in-law, she's left-handed too, but, you know, she's kind of strange, so it kind of matches. You know what I mean? So now that I'm done teasing her, my future neighbor, I might add, when we're whittling away, we exposed some voids. One of them was a small little thermal crack here, so the thin CA glue from Starbond is the best choice for that. And we'll use the UV resin from Designer Epoxy to tackle the rest of them. Okay, so we got a couple of small voids to fill. One there and one little hole there. And to do that, I'm going to be using the UV resin from Designer Epoxy. Just going to keep it clear. I don't see the need to really color this. And if you haven't seen this before, it's cured with a UV light. You can get this at Designer Epoxy as well. And I'll leave this on here for 3 minutes and rotate it over and do the other spot. And I'll bring you back when we're trimming it up. Just some very light cuts here. Just whittling it down to the surface, and then you'll see me just taking some really fine cuts to make sure that I'm not getting any tear out and I'm not getting any chip out in the resin. And that looks good. So I'll ask you guys this too, and you know, I asked the membership here this past week if there's anything that they would like for me to cover in a upcoming video, as far as, you know, during the voiceover. And I'm a little worried about things being repetitive. I do these videos each and every week, and you know, I can't remember what I've said specifically in each video. But one of the suggestions was basically what attracted me to wood turning in regards to, and how it related to the military. I don't think that it's just military. I think that if you've got a stressful job, there's nothing like throwing a piece of wood on the lathe and whittling it down and making something, being creative with it, and just kind of forgetting the daily stress that you may be under in whatever occupation it is. And it doesn't have to be, you know, the military. It could be any occupation. So that was a great one. And, you know, I love wood turning. I'm so glad that it's in my life. And I mean, there was times where I would just go out and I would actually lock the shop to keep people out of the shop. You know, basically leave me alone. I want to do this. And me time. We all need me time. And I found that it was a good stress reliever for me when I was in the military. Another suggestion was, how do I set up a booth and run a booth at a craft show? And this you could almost do an entire video on this one. When I did craft shows prior to COVID, if you're not familiar with my background, I basically traveled the province of Ontario here in Canada and did all these juried art shows throughout almost the whole province, not so much north, but down the 401 corridor. And it was a lot of work. And a lot of these shows, for instance, the One of Kind show in Toronto, they're typically 10-hour days. And they used to have late night shopping on one Thursday too. I don't know if they still do or not. So, you know, that would be a 12, 14-hour day, and it can be quite taxing. Not so much physically, it's a mental game, and trying to always smile when people come into your booth. And you know, the big thing that I can tell people is, if you're thinking about being a vendor in a show, then attend that show as a customer, see how sales are going, see what's selling, see how the successful salespeople are approaching people as they come into the booth. Make sure you always greet everybody that comes into your booth, and always project an outward happy appearance. This is sales 101. Nobody likes to talk to somebody that's grumpy. So keep it cheery, people, and sales will improve. Finally, on to sanding. These are the 3.5-inch stipple discs from sandpaper.ca. Absolutely love these discs. Been using them for many years, and do highly recommend you give them a try. They do ship to the US, and of course they don't just have the 3.5-inch stipple discs. They have the 2.5-inch stipple discs. I know that some turners like to power sand with smaller discs. I prefer the larger ones. That's just me. Yeah, but of course they have an extensive sandpaper line that you can get anything from sanding belts to these nipple discs. Like most of my work, this piece is going to be sanded from 60 to 800. It's important not to overuse your sandpaper, because what can happen is you can heat check the wood or possibly even the resin. So Sandpaper's only got a certain amount of life, and then after that, it's time to go in the trash can and get a new one. After sanding to 800, here I'm parting in the lid, or where the lid's going to sit. It is important that you have a very sharp parting tool when you're doing this, so you don't get any tear out. And you can cut the resin quite cleanly, and just very light sanding should do it. Now that that's done, we're going to buff with the Triple E buffing compound. I get mine at Lee Valley here in Canada, but you should be able to get it any place that sells wood turning supplies. You should be able to get it there as well. And that's Triple E as in the city of Triple E. And then clean up with some denatured alcohol. So now we're going to work on the lid. I figured that I would do the finish on the lid and the bottom of the dish at the same time. So that's why I didn't put the finish on that. Because I'm going to try and fit the lid to the bowl, I figured that there was no point in having finish on it because it's just going to get all marked up. So anyway, we're going to use the Hercules here. There's a slight concave on the bottom side of this, like I typically like to do with any lids that I make. And then we'll also cut in or part in where the tendon's going to sit down inside of the bowl. That's going to be next. But of course, we got to sand this just like the bowl is, and same deal, sand it from 60 to 800, and then we'll be able to fit the lid to the bowl. So once that's done, that is the parting tool, and that is the parting tool from Crown, the 3/16 inch parting tool. I really like Crown tools. I know that I've said that before. They make a good quality tool. Don't be afraid to check them out either. Last time I did one of these, I actually made a friction fit for the lid, and I could have drove it on there, but this time around, I decided not to do that. I'm going to actually use the vacuum chuck this time to hold this piece. So I'm looking for a little slack in the lid, so it's not difficult to pull off. There, it's too tight there, and I could have drove it on, and it probably would have stayed, and I could have reversed it, but I decided not to do that. The only issue with that is you got to be really careful on the size of your lid in relationship to the bowl to make sure that they match. And again, it was buffed with the Triple E buffing compound as well, and cleaned up with a denatured alcohol. So there is the vacuum chuck. I am taking great care here to try and get this centered as best I can. It would be ideal if my vacuum chuck was on the inboard side of my lathe, because I could bring up the tailstock and you can see the marks right in the very top of that. Line the tailstock up and then push it on to the vacuum chuck, and it should for the most part be perfectly lined up. It does take me a little bit here before I'm finally pleased with the result. So again, this tenon is way too large for a lid, a little knob for the very top of this, but I don't know, maybe not. I've certainly seen pieces like this with large, what Pyrex kind of comes to mind right off the top of my head, the lid that was on that stuff. There is a little dimple there from the tailstock, or from the live center, so I did have to whittle this down. Don't worry, it's actually quite comfortable to use, but it's not real tall, and I don't think that I wanted it real tall. The one thing that I really dig about this piece, as far as the knob is concerned, it matches the rest of the cracks on the very top of this. So it doesn't look like an add-on. It looks like it was integral and meant to be there. Oh wait, maybe it was. In order to make the little recess so that when you grab a hold of this little knob, there's a little recess for your fingers to go into. There I'm using the Phoenix. I think that it's a good choice for this. It's got a small little cutter, so it gets up underneath of that. And just got to whittle down that top a little bit to get rid of the little indent from the live center. And back to the Hercules after that. And then same thing with the bottom side. It was sanded from 60 to 800 and buffed just like the other pieces were done. Here I'm just showing how much slack there is in the lid, and keep in mind you're going to have more finish put on here too, so it's good to leave a little slack so it comes off easy. Alright, here comes the best part. This is Waterlux Medium Sheen. Well, that maple is awful thirsty. Drank that finish up pretty good. Now that we've got some finish on, you can actually see the gold veining in there. So I'm pleased to see that. The resin is awesome. A lot going on in this piece. Some little gold bling right there. I'll light up here a little better. There, see it now? Very cool. Lid coming up. As far as the lid is concerned, I'm just going to dump some finish on here and move it around. I'm not going to try and mount it on the lathe and hold it that way. Got to get this wood sealed up. That's probably the main focus. The curse about using shiny finishes like I do is the wood. The wood needs to be sealed up so that you get a nice sheen across the top of it. Sometimes that's not easy to achieve. There you go. I really like the fact that there's more gold in the top of this piece, so that really kind of that blends in. The knob does perfectly. Yes, you can grab it easily. Yeah, I mean, there's not a huge amount of stuff to talk about the lid, but it matches quite nicely, I find. Right. See you for the second coat tomorrow. I'm asked quite often where I get my supplies to do things. I'll just show you this. I was in at Princess Auto on the weekend, and these I believe are feed buckets, but so they should be good and durable, and they're a good size. A lot of times these feed buckets have a straight part across the back, so I was happy to see these in two different heights. So we'll give these a try and see if they're any good, but they should be durable, impact resistant. Along with that, at Princess Auto, which is basically our Harbor Freight here in Canada, picked up some syringes, brass coated brush, 40 grit flap sander, electrical tape, casting mixing buckets. These are 5 quart, and that is 3.5 liters, I believe. It's the first time I've seen these at Princess Auto. So if you're looking for buckets, you can get them there along with the other supplies. Along with that, my Lee Valley order came in. Stop loss bags, grease monkey gloves, vinyl gloves. I use a lot of these. All right, let's get back to what we're doing. So this is the next day, and I'm just mounting the lid on the vacuum chuck. Again, going to be using the Triple E buffing compound just to knock down. When you put your finishes on, these film finishes, like I like to use the Waterlux, it's important to get it on as evenly as you can so you don't see any ridges. So that's kind of one of the considerations when you're putting it on by hand, like I was for this lid. Just try to get it on there as smooth as you can. And so anyway, I decided to buff both sides of it, and then of course we'll clean this off with a denatured alcohol, and we will get a coat of finish on this as well again. All right, this is the second coat of Waterlux gloss. To answer somebody's question in the comments about how loud the vacuum pump is, there you go. It's not quiet. Well, there it is. It's going to take at least 3 coats. That is for sure. And I'll do the bottom side separately. It's more important to get the top side finished first, and then we'll be able to finish the inside. Beauty. The bowl part is coming up. People often ask, why do I put multiple coats of finish on? And I mean, it's just the wood itself is so dry. The resin, not so much. The resin isn't going to absorb finish. But I do find that 1 coat typically doesn't do it for the resin, that it needs 2 coats as well. Well, there it is. The wood definitely is covered better this time around. It will definitely need another coat. Might even need 4 coats. Try and get this to hit this right. Come on now. There we go. That's awesome. So with that, spalting. Let me know in the comments what you think. All right, we'll see you when we're doing the bottom. All right, so it's time to do the bottom. 3 coats of finish did do it for this piece. Actually went on there fairly easy. You know, again, it'd be nice to have a tailstock on the outer end to line things up, but just don't have that luxury on this lathe because we're on the outboard end again. And here I'm just using the Ellsworth gouge to get rid of the majority of the tenon and just flatten off the very bottom. I do switch back to the Hercules, but that's about it. That's going to do it for the video. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. Once I get done here with the Hercules, we'll sand this bottom up from 80 to 320. I'm only going to 320 on the bottom of these pieces. That way they're easier to write on. All right, let's see who's in the running for the draws. So what you're looking at are the names that the YouTube random comment picker has selected. These names here are for the epoxy draw. These names here are for the bowl draw. I've excluded the tractor video as it doesn't really pertain to wood turning. And in this group of videos is also the 110,000 subscriber giveaway video. All right, let's throw these names into our covered dish and start picking some names. Well, 2 to be exact. Good luck. All right, let's start off with the epoxy draw. So here are the 6 names, and I've just folded them in half, and we're going to use our dish. Why not? Go into there. And the winner of the 3-gallon kit of epoxy from Designer Epoxy goes to, here's the winner right here. Pinky Taylor, 5845. You are the winner of the 3-gallon kit from Designer Epoxy. Congratulations. Please send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com. And along with that, I'll also need your phone number for the customs form. I think you need a phone number anyway for Designer Epoxy to ship. So congratulations. All right, let's do the bowl or the lidded dish. All right, so here are the 6 names again for the lidded dish. And the winner of the lidded dish, covered dish, whatever you would like to call it, is right here. Congratulations, Diane Bartholomew, 6025. You are the winner of the 115,000 subscriber giveaway bowl, lidded dish. Congratulations. Send me your details to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, and once I get all the finish on it, and it'll be ready to be shipped out to you. So congratulations again. All right, let's actually talk about this piece. All right, let's start with dimensions on this piece. You're looking at an 8.25 across the top, around there, and 4.5 inches tall, and about a 1/2 inch in thickness, thereabouts. We'll do these two different things. So I'll set the lid down so we don't drop it, because that wouldn't be cool. The inside of this piece is really, really nice. Beautiful pieces of wood. Loving the grain in the resin. Yes, I'm going to call it grain. It's really nice as well. Could have used some hyper shift, yeah, but you know that ice white really kind of gives you that same effect, the sparkly effect anyway. Here is the very bottom, and as per normal, there's no finish on it because I'm out of time. But that's what that looks like. So that will take at least, I'm going to say 3 coats. So I still have to do under the lid. Well, I got 1 coat under the lid, but that's all that's on it right now. But lid on the top looks fantastic. The grain, or sorry, the thermal cracked or the hammered cracked pieces with that gold in there really give it a, I don't know how to, like an opalescence maybe. I don't know how to really explain that. You probably see it better on the backside where it's not as shiny. But I really like that concept, and it just adds a lot of mystery to it. Like there's gold veining going through a quartz seam or something like that. Anyway, I really, really like that that purple. You can't go wrong with that. But that is the top, and the lid will need at least 2 more coats of finish, and it'll be ready to go to its new home. Thanks again to Designer Epoxy for sponsoring the jaw again this time around. And again, we'll be doing this at 120,000 when we get there. We're actually over 116,000 already, so it's moving along. Might have to start changing these draws to every 10,000 subscribers if it keeps picking up. At this current pace, I'm okay with it, but if you're curious, something like that is going to be anywhere from $600 to $800. That is typically what that would sell for if I'm selling it in my workshop here. To give you an idea on pricing, because I know a lot of people are always like, how much does this cost? People want to know. I just don't really like disclosing these things, because then if it's a gift, they're going to know exactly what it is, and maybe I shouldn't have done it for that either, but anyway, it's too late now. So again, thanks again Designer Epoxy for that, and of course all my other sponsors down in the description down below. You can go down there, get some codes, and put some money back in your pocket. Next week is going to be, well, it's going to be very sticky. I'll just leave it at that. So please come on back for that next week. All right, that's it. Take care, stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That is the largest way for me to build my presence here on YouTube. Thanks again to the members, and of course, if you want to be a member on my channel, it's just going to cost you $2.99 a month Canadian to do so, and you know, they're going to have a little bit of say in what I'm doing here on a weekly basis. A little bit, not a whole lot, though. A little bit. All right, well, that's it. See you next week.